guys, Lori here. I'm here to do my reading wrap up for the month of January. This month was a little bit busy, a little bit chaotic, and then I got sick. I got a bad case of laryngitis, as if you guys watched my most recent reading vlog, I couldn't talk for half the reading vlog. But I actually did have a pretty good reading month. I wound up reading or listening to about 10 things. I listened to 2 books, and I read about 8 books. So yeah, sorry, I'm still coughing. I still have a small cold. My voice is not back up to 100%. So let's get into all the things that I wound up reading in the month of January. And I do on my blog post, Laura's Bookish Corner, I do have like what challenges these correspond to. I tried to make a note of them all in the Word doc, or like if these are backlist challenges, because I am participating in a couple of them. But yeah, let's get into it. The first book that I wound up reading, which was my first read of the year, was Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I say that this book is a mystery, a very, very tightly wound mystery about an amateur detective. Basically follows this girl named Stevie, and she is a student at Ellingham Academy, which is a school set, it's a school for like kids who are really, really smart. And she winds up stumbling upon a murder mystery that has some connections to a murder mystery that happened in the past. So this book is basically set in 2 timelines. So Stevie is trying to solve this mystery that she's really intrigued by, but then when another murder happens, she's wondering if they're connected. Yeah, and it was really, really good. I really liked it. I thought it was a really, really tightly wound mystery. I loved both time periods we saw the story, like the present and the past. I thought the mystery was really well done. And I really liked Stevie as a main character, and I went to an event with Maureen Johnson this past weekend, and I got to meet her, and I got her to sign the second book. So hopefully I will be able to add that to my TBR shortly. But this book I gave a solid 4.5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. It was definitely a very, very good read to start off my year. And then the next book that I wound up reading was Dreamfall by Amy Plum. The books that I pulled out of my cup that I like, one of my reading cups. I do definitely recall that. My friend also got this for me last year for Christmas, and she recently got me the sequel. But and this is another one of the books that I wound up giving away to my students, and they are so happy that they have it. And I'm excited to hear if they liked it as much as I did. I actually did like this book. It basically follows these, I think it's like 5 characters, and they all have various issues that are affecting their sleep, and they're basically at their wits end. So they decide to undergo this trial where where it's like an experiment to try to shake them out of this. But unfortunately for them, the experiment goes a little bit wrong, and they wound up trapped in their own mind, basically trapped in their nightmares together. They're in this dream world together. It was a really, really compelling read. I had to know what happened, but I didn't feel as connected to the characters as I felt that I should have. So I was really compelled by the plot, and I thought that the various perspectives you got were really interesting. You basically focused on 3 point of views in this book. 1 was a character that was outside of the experiment, and 2 were in the experiment. I found it to be super interesting. I just wish I felt a little bit more connected to the characters. It was a really, really fast-paced read too, so I'll be curious to see if in Never Wake we delve into the other characters a little bit more. But I did like it. I gave it like 3.5 stars, and I'm definitely curious enough to check out the sequel. The next book that I wound up reading was The Resolutions by Mia Garcia. This is another contemporary book that I wound up reading. It's another backlist challenge that I actually had from my library last year. But it basically follows these 4 best friends, and they make New Year's resolutions for each other that the other person has to like follow. This book was also very diverse. It follows 4 Latina or Latino characters. There was a lot of diversity in this book as well, which I really liked. And I love just looking inside these characters' lives. Like, I thought it was really interesting. I work in an inner city school, so it just was interesting seeing what lives my kids could be living in, like in that environment, and I really like that part of it. But yeah, this book also, unlike a lot of contemporaries I normally read, it took place over the whole course of a year, and you get to see these characters really grow and develop. There was an LGBTQ romance on two sides of the characters, and I just found it really compelling. There was a lot of family dynamics that were addressed, and it was just a really fun read. I wound up giving it 4 stars. It was also had like an emotional gut punch too, which I really liked. But yeah, I will definitely read more by Mia Garcia in the future. This book was definitely I was pretty impressed by it. And then the next book that I wound up reading was one of my most anticipated books of last year, and that is The Burning Maze by Rick Riordan. And I literally I was so excited to finally dive into this book. I know that this book was supposed to be a real game changer. Totally was. I'm not going to spoil it. But yeah, this book definitely did change the game, and all of my students are reading this. Like 5 kids in my school have read this, and I knew that if I didn't read it, I was going to get spoiled, and I'm so glad I wound up reading it. But yeah, I am so upset that I have to wait until October for book 4 in the series. But yeah, I really love this series. I don't think it's definitely not my favorite. I really love the Heroes of Olympus series, but the one thing I do like about this series is that it just keeps pulling characters and it keeps giving them like shout outs, which I'm really liking. But yeah, this book definitely punched me in the emotions. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit emotional at the end of this book. I'm really curious to see what happens next and what characters we meet from the Heroes of Olympus series. I definitely gave this book 5 stars, and I am still emotionally processing this novel. If you want me to do a spoiler discussion, just comment below on somewhere and I will happily do it because I do have a lot of feelings. Reading was another Owl Crate book, and that is The Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Ning. This book came in the November Owl Crate book, and I will be doing a giveaway for this. I'm just going to set it up hopefully next week because I did reach 230 subscribers on my channel, so keep a nose out for that. One of these is signed to me and the other one is not signed to me. So the one that's not signed to me, I'm going to wind up giving away to you guys. So keep a nose out for that. I'm going to post it on this channel hopefully in the next week. But yeah, I actually really like this book. I thought this book was a perfect mix between the Selection series and even kind of like Grace and Fury, but a little bit different. But it basically follows this girl named Lee, and she winds up becoming one of the paper. She basically becomes one of the paper girls that is basically like the king's concubines, but it takes an unexpected twist and she's kind of goes through it. There's an LGBTQ romance in here, and I thought it handled like that, like her becoming like the king's concubine in like a really interesting way that you don't normally often see in YA novels. This book really showed it as like a rape situation. Like that was the vibe I got, and you don't ever see that. You always see like the beautiful loving side of it. Natasha Ning had a really interesting take on it, and I really liked it. I love the LGBTQ romance. I just was really invested. This world was also really beautiful. It definitely had Malaysian inspired elements that I really liked. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for book 2, and I was really impressed with this novel overall, and I wound up giving it like 4 stars. 4.5 stars. But I was really impressed. I'm definitely gonna be checking out book 2. Mentioned earlier in the video, Truly Devious was the Time Warp YA book club book, and then Throne of Glass was the other one, and I wound up listening to the audiobook for that, and I really liked falling back into this world. I'm loving Selena as a character. I'm loving it. I love Doreen and Cal. I just love their dynamics. I haven't read this book in a while, and I'm gonna attempt to read Crown of Midnight because my friend Tiffany got me the book, so that's gonna be one of my first reads of February. And then I'm gonna go back to listening to as the books get a little bit longer. But yeah, I was really happy that I fell back into the series, and I'll be curious to see where the series goes, especially after book 3 when I stopped reading them. So yeah, so thank you Time Warp YA Book Club for making this the series that we're reading next. And overall, I really liked it, and I gave it 4.5 stars on my reread. Reads that I read mostly when I was sick and dealing with all of my laryngitis and my cold and my cough that I'm still dealing with. But the first read that I finished was Never Contented Things by Sarah Porter. This book doesn't actually come out until March, but I had an early ARC that I got from Owl Crate at BEA. So yeah, here is a nice picture of the cover. I did talk about this a little bit in my reading blog after like I had a voice. But I struggled with Sarah Porter's first book, Facet in the Night. That was like one of the first Owl Crate boxes I got. I didn't love it. I thought that the world and the way it was written was really confusing, and it was hard to feel engaged and like follow it. And I struggled a little bit in this book, but I was definitely more connected to the characters in this book. I was definitely more invested in like one point of view than the other two. And I thought that the fairy, like it says it's a novel of fairy, and that is true, but I think it had more like horror elements than fairy elements, if that makes sense. The world is still really weird, but I liked what she did with the characters. Thought it was interesting. I think it's probably going to be a standalone, but they might add more books in the world. But yeah, it was a compelling read. I just wish I felt more connected to the characters, if that makes sense. Like I liked it, I didn't love it. I definitely gave it like 3 stars on for a read. But I definitely liked it more than Basset in the Night. I didn't like it as much as the Cruel Prince series, which is typically like a very, very straight up fairy novel. But I liked it. I recommend maybe checking it out from your library when it comes out in March. Definitely wasn't my favorite read of the month, but it was an enjoyable read. Not as weird as Basset in the Night, but I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. Again, when I was knocked on my butt with laryngitis, and that is The Me I Meant to Be by Sophie Jordan. This was a really quick read. I think I read it mostly in one day when I was home from work and I really couldn't focus on anything. It's a contemporary book that follows two characters, Willa and Flora. They are in high school, but this book read very middle schooly to me. And they're basically both dealing with some unexpected romance entanglements, and they're writing a girl code for their like best friends. And it just, they deal with a bunch of stuff, and, they both wind up inadvertently breaking the girl code, and it's just kind of the ramifications of that. The characters weren't that memorable, to be really honest. It was an okay read, definitely wasn't my favorite. It wasn't, like, as sweet and fluffy as a Casey West, and it wasn't as hard-hitting as a Katie McGarry book, but it was pretty middle of the road. I definitely wouldn't read it again, but I would read more by Sophie Jordan in the future. I gave this book like 3 stars for a read. It was okay, it just wasn't really memorable. I'll say that. But yeah. And then the book that I finished being sick with, and I just finished recently, was Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. And this was an Owl Crate book that I got in the month of October. This is one of my highlight reads of the month, along with The Burning Maze. But this basically follows an anime which follows several characters as they're hunting for the parts of a scroll that when you put the pieces of the scroll together, it will summon a dragon that will give you a wish. Basically, everyone's after this. This is a Japanese-inspired novel. There's kitsunes in it. There's thieves. There's assassin. There's royalty. I really liked it. I love the development of a found family. I love the adventuring and the questing, and when the groups got bigger, I really liked it. And as me as a person, I don't read a lot of like watch or read a lot of anime, but this book was so easy to like dive into. It really impressed me. I gave it 4.5 stars. I thought the ending could be a little bit more fleshed out and not as rushed. But overall, it was just a book that really impressed me. And I'm definitely going to be checking out the sequel. And then to end the month, I wound up reading The Fill-In Boyfriend by Casey West. February read for the Time Warp YA Book Club that I wound up just reading a little bit early because I just had some time that I was traveling on the train. But it basically follows this girl who winds up being dumped in the parking lot on prom night. And she's very like, she needs to save face, and she really, at this moment, it really only cares that the boy's there so that her friends can see that he exists. But she winds up picking up this guy and begging him to be her prom date so her friends don't think she's a liar. And it kind of sets off this random meeting, and then they wind up exchanging favors for other things that this gentleman needs. And it was just a really, really, nothing bad. They just wound up like being each other's fake dates for a couple of different events. But I really liked it. I think it's probably one of my favorite Casey West books under like Love Life and The List I really liked as well. But I really liked how it dealt with like friendship dynamics, family dynamics, self-discovery, and just a bunch of other things. I thought it was a really, really well-crafted novel. I really, really liked the book boyfriend in this. He definitely like made me smile. But yeah, I really hope to finish Casey West's backlist this year. That's another one of my goals. But yeah, I really liked it. I gave it like 4 stars. It was just like a fun read that I listened to really, really fast. And yeah, I found it to be a really, really fun read. So that's my thoughts on The Fill-In Boyfriend by Casey West. I'm also in the middle of listening to Creative Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, which is a nonfiction book, or Big Magic, I think it is. I think it's what it's called, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I'm listening to that, and that's just like a nonfiction book that I've wanted to listen to for a while. And I actually have a physical copy of it, but I wound up getting it from Audible. So that's what I'm listening to right now, and I'm also reading The Lying Woods by Ashley Elston, which is a contemporary that I will talk about more in my February TBR. But yeah, those are all the books that I wound up reading in the month of January, or the books I'm in the middle of. We still have all day tomorrow, so I hope to actually knock out a good portion of that audiobook and a good portion of this book. But I did want to check in on some of my goals. The one goal I really wanted to focus on this year was to read more diversely, and I definitely am doing that, at least so far. I was able to read 2 thrillers, 1 middle grade, 2 contemporaries, and then like 3 or 4 fantasies, and 2 audiobooks. So that's actually a pretty good range for me. I normally read a lot of fantasy, but I'm going to continue to force myself to read much more diversely this year. But yeah, let me know in the comments what were some of your highly reads of the month. For me, it was definitely Shadow of the Fox and The Burning Maze, and I'm super excited to see what you guys read, and I cannot wait to post my February TBR. And I'll talk to you guys later for another video. Bye.